I think we'll get started. Hopefully, if a few people jump in, it will make sense for them. I'm Joel Mendez. I'm with Guidepost Montessori. I'm a father and I'm a Montessori educator, and I've been I've had the pleasure of talking with a lot of other people the past few months and years who are also interested in what it takes to raise children in an optimal environment. And one of those people is with us today. Her name's Jennie Monness, and she's based in New York. She's been an early childhood educator herself. She's studied at Columbia's Teachers College, designed early childhood programs, really focusing on research-based practices and what works with brain development, child development, particularly with children in the youngest of ages. I'm not stealing all of your thunder, Jennie, but she's a wonderful person. She started a couple organizations, one called Mo Mommies, one called
Union Square Play.
Union Square Play. I don't know why that was leaving my brain in the moment. Union Square Play in New York, really focused on how we can purposefully engage with young children, and like I said, create an optimal environment for them. So I'm super happy that she's here. I'm also going to introduce you to Emily. Emily Greenberg is here. She's a colleague of ours, and a newish mom. Her son's just over a year, and has really been thinking about this, I think, professionally and personally in a new way since she's become a mother. Just like I think all of us have when we become parents, is the mind shift that comes with the responsibility and the joy and the pain and everything involved in parenting. So Emily's here today too. And what we'll do is just turn it over to Jennie pretty quickly. She's got an awesome, she's pulled together some awesome thoughts and resources for us on how we can help children build their confidence through play. In early childhood, there's always this very interesting collaboration between the concepts of work and play. We talk about this a lot in Montessori education about how for children, it's not really that different. So how do we make it really purposeful, just like we as adults like to make our work really purposeful? So I'll turn it over to you really quickly, Jennie. Okay. One last point before I do, just so everybody's aware, we are recording this. We love seeing your videos. If you're comfortable, we would love it if you're comfortable. It's fun to talk to people instead of static images, but full disclosure, we are recording it. So just wanted to make sure that was clear. And then one more logistics, Jennie's gonna sort of share some of her thoughts, take us through her presentation that she has here. And then at the end, we'll have a time for asking her questions just related to parenting and all of the concepts that she brings up through building a child's confidence. So if you've got questions, feel free to either drop them in the chat along the way or speak up at the end, and we'll get a chance to pick Jennie's brain a little bit.
Great. Awesome. Thank you so much, Joel. Thank you. So as Joel said, I'm Jennie Monness, and I'm an early childhood educator and sort of a parenting educator as well. And as mentioned, I created a mom and parenting resource and blog called Mo Mommies, meant to really empower moms and parents to look within and find their own tools, with me sharing a lot about my personal parenting journey, which I'll take you through here as well. I feel like you'll all know my kids by the end of this, but really because they're great kind of ways, they're a great avenue to show you how this all can come to life in the day-to-day. And as mentioned as well, I co-founded a play space called Union Square Play, also a way of bringing all of these ideas to life, of following a child's natural tendencies toward discovering their world and how we can do that in thoughtful environment. And the last thing about me that I want to share is that I truly feel that play is a way to connect with children on a very deep level. Even with my degrees, I learned the most by being an early childhood educator and the children being my teacher, because they just show you the way. So I just wanted to say that. And yeah, so now I'm going to share my screen with you guys, and just bear with me. as I do so to show you the presentation.
Great, it looks good, Jenny, you're up.
Okay, great. So, building confidence through play. So many of us are home with our kids right now, a lot more than we typically would be due to the pandemic, of course. And a lot of us are working from home while caring for our children. And it was really inspired by parents reaching out to me why I chose this topic. For instance, some parents will say, I'm a single mom, or my partner's at work and I'm trying to juggle it all by myself. What can I offer my child to play with? Or I try to play with my child all day, but he seems frustrated and disinterested. What can I do? So it's really clear now, more than ever before, we sort of need to become students of early childhood. I always say that, at least with the moms that I see in the community we formed, you once you become a parent, you kind of want to be a student again and learn all you can about early childhood. And so that's how I approach this presentation, not in a way that I want to be overwhelming, but in a way that you can kind of go back to school and learn everything that I'm presenting in a way that I hope you find fascinating and approachable as well. So, why is play powerful? I think the term the power of play is really spot on, because so much can come about through play. It's truly the work of childhood. But why is it so powerful? For the sake of time, I'm going to focus more on how play can build confidence and how that's a very powerful part of play, and what our role, if any, is in that. Play is truly a window of opportunity to really encourage a lot of good stuff in your child's cognitive development, but also in their sense of self. So I kind of coined this term as I was doing this presentation, that play can be a working window. It's a window to see how your child works. I really feel that play is a child's work, just like our jobs are our work, and that it provides a window of us finding out what interests your child, who they are, what frustrates them, what interests them, what motivates them from within, what they're naturally curious about, and where they are developmentally and cognitively speaking. And what they need in every moment can be evident in their play. There's been times where my daughter has injured herself and I didn't understand why she kind of made these little things so big. And so we took out some dolls and ice packs and we kind of reenacted like what happens when Mickey or Minnie hurt themselves, and we kind of discovered through that it was scary to her rather than a big injury that really hurt her. So it was a window for me to kind of see what was really underneath that. So that's kind of what I mean by how you can learn all of this through play. So now I'm gonna really explain today's topic. We all know what play is, but I'm not sure if you know that there's a way in which you can really respect your child by respecting their play. You know, we might just see our children play and they might look to us and say, look what I did. And we're like, oh, great, good job. And I don't mean to make anyone feel badly about any way they respond to their child's play, or want to present a way to think a little bit differently about it, because I think we can all grow in this area, including myself. So what does that mean to respect your child's play? We respect their play when we truly understand and believe in the importance and power of the play, when we take that seriously. We show respect with how we respond to and interact with our children during the play. how we respond to them since the day they're born really relays many messages that we might not be aware of. And second, oops, sorry about that. I just also want you to think of your child's play as their job. So think of that as an adult. How can you respect someone's work? And that can really help you think about it. So for example, I try and create an area of our home where there's not a lot of foot traffic, just the same way you don't want to like kind of set up shop for your job in the middle of, you know, a really crowded, distracting area. I also don't want to really be like interrupting and noisy around her play or both of their play. So that's really what I mean by respecting it in ways that you might not naturally be inclined to think about. So some questions for today. Curiosity is something that I really consider to be one of the most important things that we want to preserve from childhood. Curiosity is truly a drive to learn. So when we stop being curious, or when children lose that, we almost stop learning. So number one, how do we hold on to that curiosity that they're born with, and what can we do to support it? And number two, when children aren't confident about what they're doing, but are feeling discouraged or frustrated or feeling like they aren't doing enough or doing it right, they can become kind of disheartened and less confident. So that's another thing that we want to kind of be mindful of that I'll talk about. And three, something that our children may be lacking right now is exposure to their peers and teachers. So for instance, designated playtime in a classroom and honoring that time as a sacred part of the day may or may not be in their daily life right now, or playing next to a peer, which can be motivating and engaging and can really encourage a love of learning. So in lieu of that, it's kind of up to us to support in thoughtful ways that can build confidence when we're around them. However, I just want to point out that it's not our job to be teachers right now, but it's our job to help them feel safe and comfortable, and play is a really big part of that. So we're going to figure out in terms of play, how do we honor it? I want you to consider what children gain by being around children during play, and how they all take that seriously when they're around one another, and kind of like bring out the child in you to participate when you can. So the first thing we do to start helping to encourage them to build confidence in their play is figuring out types of play that will resonate or make sense for your particular child. A lot of people will be like, can you send me a list of activities or things to get? But it really starts by observing your child. Like by watching them, you also learn when you should intervene, what things you can provide for them or invite them with to play. What may work for one child may be completely uninteresting for another. So start with observing. What is your child interested in? And then you'll learn about your child by watching them. Who are they at this point in their life? What do they like? What provides a challenge but is still developmentally appropriate for them? And when do they need me versus when are they happy in their own focused play and challenging times? So you sort of kind of see with new eyes instead of just kind of watching them play. These are some good questions that you can think about when you're watching them, because like I said, they're windows of opportunity to really learn. And these are answers to these questions, these answers to them, you're not going to find on Google or by asking me. They're going to be answered by your child and by watching. The play is theirs and no one else's. So I just think it's important to honor that, and observing is the first step. So this is a video about how play should really flow. When a child is flowing in their play or really engaged in their play, it fosters a true drive from within versus doing or participating in play to get outside affirmations. They're motivated from within. It's a state in which they're so involved that nothing else seems to matter, and it's a type of play that they make happen. I should have been playing the video while I was talking for sake of time, but if you just notice, there's no look to me to affirm that what she's doing is great, or no look to me for a good job. She's playing for the sake of playing for herself. And it's important not to message or convey that we're expecting more or less of our children, and for us to really not have a planned purpose for a material. We invite, but we don't prescribe or really tell them how to use a material. So I obviously presented this invitation to play with little slits in these containers for her to fit the keys into, but if she had chosen to flip those containers over and put keys in that way, or to throw the keys and see what noise it made, I truly would not have said, no, this is the way you do it, because I feel that that's not a way to build her confidence by telling her she's using materials in the right or wrong way. And it's one of the reasons why I think play should be open-ended, because when you use materials that are open-ended, it has unlimited paths and purposes, and you're not conveying a message of you're not using that, right? So I'm using just household items for my infant, and while it would be cool to hear her bang with the spatula on the metal, I'm putting my agenda or interest aside and seeing what she's discovering. So children are born with natural urges, which people in early childhood refer to as natural schemas in their play. And it's things like wanting to bang, wanting to collect or hold many things in their hands at once, putting things in order, throwing things. So I also think that using open-ended materials allows children to live out these urges that they're basically born with instead of hindering them. So that's what I try to use when I'm picking out materials in my mind, rather than, oh, this really only has one purpose, that if they throw this, it's dangerous, or if they shake this, that's not ideal. And so that's the second step after observing is how to really pick out materials. Another reason I really love open-ended materials is because of this kind of slogan. Passive toys equal busy babies, and busy toys equal passive babies. So yeah, you can read this, but we don't want our children to be entertained. We want them to be engaged and to immerse themselves in learning and thoughtful play, and really to have an opportunity to master things and to build confidence. So another reason I don't like toys that are busy and that many friends kind of make fun of me about, like, oh, we need to put away the electronics, is because I just feel it doesn't give a real opportunity. And while it's not detrimental, I want more opportunity for creativity and discovery. So another thing that we should keep in mind when building confidence is that we need our children. They need to trust that they are the initiator. They're born an explorer. They're born eager to learn. And because of that trust, we provide them with only enough help necessary to obviously make sure that they aren't suffering or upset, but to know the difference between challenging and problem-solving opportunities and rescuing or interrupting is an important aspect of it. So I think it was Janet Lansbury said something like, be careful what you teach. It may get in the way of their learning. And I think it relates to, trust them. They want to learn. We don't need to tell them to want to learn. So yeah, I love this. It seems counterintuitive to refrain from helping them, but we serve them much better when we intervene only minimally and we support them to struggle and experiment and to really enjoy the process. So this is probably the most seemingly overwhelming part, I think, for parents is like, when do I intervene? How do I intervene? How do I involve myself? When do I sit back? And I think part of allowing your child to play, learn, and build confidence is for you to kind of understand your role. It's almost like a science, but it's important to remember that it doesn't need to be perfect every time. And that you only achieve that kind of flow of knowing how to involve yourself when you give yourself the opportunity to observe when you can. So one thing is to really keep in mind, like I said before, is to put aside an agenda. Just authentically watch your child, or authentically have an open mind. So if they do something with the material and you're saying good job, keep in mind that that may mean that a different use is not a good job. So there's other things you could say to encourage, like, oh, I saw you shook that light bulb, which is not safe, but sorry, I skipped over, but what she was holding is safe. So that's why I use that as an example, but you know what I mean, that really to try and be mindful that by conveying our own sort of agenda or expectation can get in the way of encouraging confidence. And then it's one thing to, set up really cool materials or interesting materials, but it's another to do so in a way that's respectful. So something I would set up for Tess, my older daughter, isn't necessarily appropriate for my daughter Nell and isn't really setting her up for success. Also, it may not be something that my younger daughter is interested in. Right now, she wants to chew. So giving her something that wouldn't be comfortable for her to chew is not really helping her. And then really to think about what your agenda or purpose is. When you're setting up something, is it that you want to see if your child's going to do the same thing that your friend's child did, which I'm guilty of as well, but I'm saying this more because, like, I think when we check in with our agenda, we can, reframe. And then confidence building can really start from day one. And this isn't to say that if you haven't done these things since day one, that it's too late. It's just more to show that any of you that are watching, if you have a young baby, providing them with just simple items and just watching is really a great way to start. My older daughter's a little bit loud in this, so I'm muting it. But I think by giving her this space, we're conveying, this is your space now. You can explore here. I don't expect anything of you. I just want you to explore. And I'm going to put you in a space that's just yours. And it's sacred for kind of you to play and do whatever you want. And then, of course, my toddler pulls the mat off screen a little bit, but you get the point that I'm implementing this idea from a very early age. So this is an example of how you can support with language.
You did. You put the orange bear in the orange cup. And what one did you put in there?
So I didn't say that it was wrong for her to put any color in any cup. I was just saying what happened. And you can tell she's enjoying in however she's chosen to play. And then this is a part where it got difficult for her. Of course, I'm talking over my voice. It got difficult and she said, "Mommy," and I just said, "I'm right here." And that's all she needed in that moment. If she was continuously struggling and needed me, then I might show her how to use the material, but it's not the first thing that I do. This is a really valuable video, but it's long, so I'm going to skip over it. But just to show that frustration does happen and that this is me not being perfect. So she has a hard time with a ram. You can't put it in. So right there, I said, you can't put it in. I should have said, you're having a hard time putting it in, you know, like she can put it in. But my reflex was to say you can't, and that's not really going to build confidence. So I'm showing that we're not perfect, but that this can help us.
You? Maybe. Does that go, or maybe try?
So
Got that in that hole, but see, this is a round. So Yay! You did it.
So it's a little bit long. Oops. I just wanted you to see that frustration does happen, but that you can support by scaffolding, by giving little steps. So these are like the last parts of this, is just to be mindful of how we invite and inspire play. We want an environment that's safe, of course, but that's challenging and, of course, emotionally nurturing. You know, we're nearby, they know where to reach us if they need us. Setting things up intentionally and not just kind of a heap of things can really help to encourage, you know, confidence building, because when things are just in a pile, there's not any real opportunity to kind of master things. These are just different setups and ways I'm organizing and inviting play. And yeah, you really don't need a lot. And, you know, sorry, I know we're running out of time. One thing to keep in mind is disorganized space or toys results in disorganized play. So it's hard for them to focus. So risky play is a whole nother kind of, you know, topic, but I want to just bring it up because it's an opportunity for children to really build resilience and to overcome fears. So this is very hard to do because we want to keep our children safe. We don't want to convey messages like, no, you're going to fall, or no, you're going to hurt yourself. And the video I'm going to show you is going to make you cringe, but just know I had seen my daughter climb down from this table 500 times, and that it's not the initial starting point at all.
Tess, can you get down safely? Show me how you get down safely. How do you get down? You did it.
Yeah, instead of saying you're gonna fall, I think helping to encourage how do you get down, or how can you get down safely. And of course, in 500 times I'd be standing there. I really tried not to just scoop her off or be like, no, you're gonna fall, because I think, and a lot of research on risky play has said this, that while we try to protect our children from danger, in the process, we're setting them up for insecurities and self-doubt. So definitely not a way of building confidence. And then I want to just point out, pretend play is an awesome opportunity for building confidence, because anything can be anything. sensory exploration is a great way too, because it's about the process, just getting messy and exploring. There's no right or wrong way, of course, as long as they don't eat it. And yeah, all of this is meant to empower children. And the shared goal we all have as parents is to create a safe space for them to be who they are and not who we want them to be. So yeah.
Jenny, thank you. Thanks for taking us through that. I just wanted to sort of make sure that I was getting the core of it. If I was going to summarize sort of what you were saying, it's that there is actually not a distinction between play and any other experience that children are having. They're always gathering in new information. And how do children do this? It's by absorbing their surroundings. So as parents and adults, we can create these thoughtful surroundings to make sure that we're cultivating the right type of learning that we want. I love that quote about passive babies and active toys. And I noticed that a lot of what you're actually putting out there for your children, like many of us wouldn't even think of as toys. I saw a Metro card, I saw a button, I saw there's things that anything can be a toy, because I think it's that same concept that children don't distinguish with now I'm playing and now I'm working. Like it doesn't matter for them. Whatever they're engaging in is that experience. Is that fair? That sort of
Truly, yeah. And I think by setting, I try to kind of pick my battles. So I really try not to limit anything that I don't have to in their play. I want that to be an endless opportunity to build confidence and learn. And but of course there's times where I have to, like small materials and so forth. But yeah, when you don't have to, I just think, why?
Yeah, it's almost like you're going to put in extra barriers by having your adult outcomes in mind rather than what you can naturally see unfold in a really beautiful way. Because one of the joys I've had in working with my children is just you get to see like firsthand, like yesterday they couldn't do that and now they can, and it's like so wonderful. I know we've all experienced that.
One question I had on this exact topic is, the urges that you mentioned, I'm noticing in my son who's 20 months, and I try to provide opportunities for him to explore those, but then they translate to throwing his food on the floor or picking up the dog's water bowl and dumping it out. So just as Joel mentioned, where it's like they don't know they're playing now and 5 minutes later they aren't, I do wonder about sort of like when to set those boundaries in those instances and how to do that appropriately and in an encouraging way.
Of course. And it's one of the reasons why at Union Square Play, we let the kids get messy and dump water and do all these things that we knew that they really have a desire to do, but that is so hard to do at home. That being said, yes, I don't allow my kids to just throw food and do all that, but I do kind of meet them where they are. If I think it's about those urges and not about like, I'm angry and you did something that bothered, so that's a whole nother way of addressing it. But when they're throwing for the sake of throwing, or I think, they have these natural tendencies that I'm seeing, I might say, for example, wow, I think you really want to throw something, or what happens when you throw it, but we don't throw, or I'm not going to let you throw your food. You eat your food, but you can throw this. So I try to give something else that they can do to say, there's kind of a time and place and material that you could do that with. And if I really see recurring things, it's like I said, with observing, that's how you set up play. If they're obsessed with throwing, get balls, get splatter paint, whatever it is, and use that as a way of giving them the opportunity to act out those urges in a safe, appropriate way.
You're trying to channel that. I had that with my own son with water, obsessed with water, and how he would want to play with water is he would go to our sink and get a cup and pour it on the ground or pour it on the cat or pour it like everywhere. And so, we can let him do that, or we set up a water table for him outside where it's fine for him to splash and play. And it's not like, don't try to tell him not to spill. It's like, no, get him to spill in the right, appropriate place so that he can really work through that, whatever was drawing his attention to that.
Yes. And I find that giving the opportunity for that kind of diminishes the throwing of the thing you don't want them to throw, because
Yep.
they're actively acting out that urge in other ways.
Yeah. Jenny, we've got a couple really interesting questions. One of them just came to me privately, so I'll get to that one first before I get to the one that Rajaswari said in the chat. The first question that I got was, she's a parent of an older child, 5-year-old. And so I'm just curious how this sort of play transitions as the child gets older, particularly when now we may have more adult agendas. We want them to read, we want them to do math, we want them to get their academics. And so I'm curious if you have thoughts on that.
Yeah, so you're more saying, do you build confidence in the same way through play?
Or how could you set it up in a way that's more conducive for that age group?
Yeah.
You know, as they're getting older.
And I even am demonstrating this more with my 2.5+ year old. Like, you know, while I showed you a lot of open-ended stuff, there are times like those teddy bears with the colors that I wanted to see what she would do, but I didn't have an agenda for it. And I don't think you need to. I think that's what school is for. And if you're asking me from like a teacher's perspective, I think that it depends on the philosophy of the school, but I don't believe at home that you need to have an agenda in their play. So if you're, you know, wanting to focus on your daughter showing or demonstrating that they know colors, I think you can do so in a way that's just, maybe it's making a fruit salad and you're pointing out the different colors in the fruit salad, but I don't think you need to say, can you put the red bear in the red cup? I think if you want, you can ask that. You could say, look at all these colored bears, but there's also something else I've done is kind of a color scavenger hunt. Like I put some colors on a piece of paper and I was like, let's find everything red in the house. And that is a more prescriptive activity. But if she came to me with things that weren't red, yeah, I might be like, oh, this is green, but not like, no, you didn't follow. I mean, I think it's more of a nuanced thing, but I just don't think you need to teach in your play, because then I think that's when you run into having an agenda and not building confidence. And I sort of feel like unless you're homeschooling, which is a different thing, I don't think it needs to fit into this. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And it's not like they're not going to learn, right? They're just going to learn. They're going to learn in whatever sort of naturally occurring in that circumstance.
Yeah, like there's still ways of figuring out if they know colors and to read and other ways in books and stuff like that, that you can demonstrate.
Jenny, I was actually like looking a little bit deeper into the question she asked me, because it was a little bit longer. And another thing that she raised, which I have thoughts on, so I'll just jump in myself, is about socialization for the older children. Like if we set up a play area for them in your home, they're going to be doing a lot of, you know, very independent play. You know, that's obviously all that babies are capable of. They're not going to socialize, but at some point, as children age up, how do you cultivate socialization? And I think, you know, my thoughts on it really quickly, just so we can get to some of the other questions too, are that children actually need to, and adults too, we all need to really understand ourselves before we can socialize, right? Like you've been in a bad relationship, unfortunately, it's because somebody didn't really have their own awareness down, usually. And I think children are very much the same. And a lot of how they're practicing for socialization comes in either introspection from working alone or their interactions with adults. And so I think the communication that you have as a parent or as an adult in their life is really setting the stage for what they're going to model their interactions with children later on in life. It's actually very developmentally appropriate for children to play alone up until a much older age than we would expect. Probably around 6 or 7 is like really when they start becoming very social. And then it's not that they don't play with younger children or with children when they're younger, but oftentimes they're playing what we call parallel play. It's actually, they're playing like next to the child. They're not actually very aware that there's another perspective and another human being that they're interacting with there. So I don't know, Jenny, if you wanted to throw anything else in about socialization.
I think, and part of my notes that I don't think I specified was to kind of reassure parents that while I was focusing a lot on the fact that they're home and they're not around other kids, that they're going to be okay in terms of socialization, because they are socializing by being around us, even if it's just you and your child. And there's times where you can use that as an opportunity. Like if your child, and not to kind of contrive a situation, but you could, you know, if your child's playing with a doll, be like, oh, I want to play with that. You can kind of create, you know, situations. I know it sounds like a little bit manipulative, but it's giving them an opportunity and to see what they do. I mean, I have 2 kids, so my infant, they not grabbing from each other, but she'll like play and mess things up. And so I think, you know, we take for granted that just any human beings around is opportunity for socialization. And as Joel said, modeling. And I don't know if the question was like, if I'm just allowing them to play in all these ways, what will they do when they socialize? But
it was more just like she's
okay.
noticing a tendency that they're playing alone. And
like
concerned
you
about
said, it's very normal and typical and okay.
Yeah, great. Thank you. There's 2 questions that are actually, I'm going to tie together a little bit, even though there's different examples, because they're both centered around intervening. As you mentioned, it is, I think, the toughest part of parenting and educating is when do you step in and when do you hold back with all of your strength to not step in, because it is a natural tendency, I think, in us as adults. One of the questions is about encouraging toddlers to talk without correcting their speech, right? They're saying something incorrectly. And then I think you can also extrapolate out from this question, older children as they're starting to read or write and spelling and so forth. Like when you step in and sort of make a correction, or when do you allow them to keep going so that they're building their confidence? Because you don't want them to be confident but wrong, right?
Right. So totally. And I actually, if you can chime in about the spelling, it's been like I'm like so focused on babies and pre-spelling that I need to like really think about that. But in terms of, but I'm very in it with the whole like mispronunciation or saying the wrong word. And again, modeling. I don't think you need to say that's not right or wrong. I mean, my daughter, it's actually cute. She uses the word spicy for anything that like stings or whatever. Like she cut her finger. She's like, it's spicy. And I'll be like, oh, it stings. That stings, you know? And I don't think I need to say it's not spicy. You know, I think, again, basic trust in that way that they're going to get the hang of that. The more they say the incorrect term and the more you just model back and respond with the correct use, it will sink in. And when that happens, you'll probably miss the misuse of the word. But yeah, trust that.
How about with pronunciation too? Because I know, you know, it's hard.
So I think that this is, again, like not a perfect science, and that I would start by just modeling the correct pronunciation. And if it's a repeated thing, you know, there was the other day where I realized she couldn't say like, or as an example, I don't even remember what it was. And I will stand in front of her, you know, face to face and be like, no, with the tongue out, and be more asking of her in a direct way. So it's not to say that I don't think that's saying that's ruining her confidence to speak. I think, again, I'm modeling and showing her, and yeah, it is the correct way. So I think as you get older, there's room for that more. So, and it's different than just play. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think for me, and this relates also to the spelling point, it depends what I think the core of the interaction is with the children. Like there are times where I'm focused with my children on getting them, like maybe I do want to help them say something more that will be understood more for others. And that's the concern. And this ties into another question, is when they can't say something is when they get fussy and frustrated, right? So oftentimes as a parent, I want to help them communicate better. Yeah. And other times as a parent, I just want to understand them. Like I'm not worried about the communication. I'm more worried about the love or security or connection or the game or whatever else it is we're working on. So I think that is, you don't want to confound issues for children unnecessarily, like overcomplicate the situation with them. When it comes to spelling later on, if if every time they write something, you're just focused on, you did this wrong, you did this wrong, you did this wrong, like,
Right.
what is that going to do to their confidence, right? Like,
Right.
you have to like pick your battles in some,
Yeah.
you know, sort of in that regard.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
There's
I was just
there's
gonna chime
another.
in. Oh, I'm sorry, Joel. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, Emily.
No. I mean, this is my own personal question. I guess it's the, and it relates to the question about frustration. You know, I feel like there's this like just right place, right? Where something is not so simple that it's so easy, and not so difficult that they actually lose confidence because they feel they can't do it. And I've felt with my son, he loses interest in something that feels too hard for him very frequently, where I actually want to show him like, no, this puzzle piece does fit in here and you can do it, or I can show you how. But I guess, I don't know sort of how you go about, I guess through observation, but finding those sort of just right levels for your children. And, you know, as they grow, those change, I guess.
Yeah. That is very related to Leora's question. So Leora's question starts about communicating and fussing when a very young child doesn't have any verbal skills yet. But then the question goes to a very interesting place, which is like, what should I be doing with proximity with children? How close should I be to them? Is my presence going to be overwhelming for them, or is it going to be liberating for them? And how do I know? Hopefully that's a fair summary of your question, Leora, but if it's not, then chime in.
Yeah. And Emily, I loved your question, but but let me answer these first. So many thoughts about that, and like puzzles and things like that. But so I think it depends on the child and the mood and these things when they're that young. So there's times where you can slowly put your baby down and move away and they're happy. If you know it's like time of day when they're hungry, they haven't been fed, they haven't, you know, they're tired. I think closer proximity and not just like putting down and moving away, but really sitting with is a good rule of thumb. I don't think, if you feel you're a distraction, it probably is a time that you can step away. Yeah. You know, and not abruptly. A lot of parents will be like, I can't. And I say, try slowly, you know, especially a baby at that age, you know, I'm going to put you down now to play. And maybe you play a little bit in front of them. And then you're like, you can say, I'm going to be right in the kitchen, and slowly get up and walk away, and then look back. They'll probably look to you and smile. You know, you kind of need to give babies those steps because they do need you to be their home base. And it might even be you hear them in the other room and you peek in, I'm right here, and then they go back to playing. So I think you do not need to be there, especially if you feel like you're a distraction, but you may need to check in more than like a child who's older.
Jenny, I love what you're saying about saying it to them, even if they're 6 months old and you don't think that they're going to understand it. Just the confidence that even though I'm not here right now, I'm always here. I think that's really important for them.
And it will serve parents very well, I promise.
Very true. Very true. Katie's got, oh my gosh, the most hot button issue I think we could come up with here, which is, how do you help your in-laws or your parents or the other people that are working with your children play with them in a style that you're confident with? I must admit, I've felt this a lot with my parents and my wife's parents, where they're loving as grandparents are, and they want to spoil their children. They want to give them TV time because the kids love TV time and so forth. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on how you can get your whole community involved.
Well, two responses to this. One, I think it's okay that for kids to grow up and know that at Nanny Sue's house, they get ice cream. At Nanny Sue's, they play, that's my mom, and this is a made up thing. She doesn't do that, but I'm just giving an example. You know, they play with electronic toys or whatever. I think that's okay, you know, especially if it's on occasion. If it's different and like right now, maybe you're living at your in-laws and it's a lot and you don't want it, you're worried about it kind of getting in the way. I always tell, because this comes up so much, I tell like you're learning together. You know what I watched today on Guidepost? This whole thing about what we're using for play, how we respond to play. Like, I want you to tell me what you think about it. And I don't think anyone can really argue some of the points, you know, that I'm not saying, you know what I mean, that I think it at least can inspire a conversation for you guys to talk about, and can make an in-law or a grandparent not feel like you're telling them that they're doing wrong, but rather, wow, I didn't even think about this. What do you think? And for it to kind of come up together.
I love that. As soon as you start parenting your parents, you know it's going to go wrong, right? So you have to open up the conversation.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a really, I think, another pretty deep question here, is how do you repair broken confidence? Or if you feel like the confidence isn't what you wished it would be, particularly as you have an older child. And I have some thoughts here too, Jenny, if you feel like you're working with the younger children and you know more the proactive side, but I'm sure you've got a lot of good ideas.
Yeah, I mean, I never believe that anything is too late for parents. And I always say that because I firmly believe that, you know, especially coming from the perspective of a teacher. There's been times that kids have a whole different way of playing and being with family, and then they come to school. And so there's always opportunity. And I think to build confidence, of course, there's so many ways, but I think to take in what you're probably seeing most in your children now, like to take in when they're playing, you know, or whatever they're doing the most of right now as an opportunity of building that confidence. So if you notice in their play that suddenly they're only playing with things that have a right or wrong way, try and take out more creative play opportunities. There's no right or wrong way. And when they're creating something, you can point out the process of what they're doing. I mean, Joel, I might need you to answer because I feel like I could talk a lot.
Yeah.
There's just so, I hope I'm assuring that the reason I'm at a lack of words is because there's millions of opportunities.
Yeah, I think that is a great point. There are millions of opportunities. And I also will make the point that it's very clear, particularly if you have multiple children, which I think you do, Priti, that sometimes it's the personality, right? Like you can raise children in the same environment with the same methodology, with the same approaches, and get very different outcomes when it comes to their confidence. But I think I completely agree. It's never too late. One phrase that I really love to help people with confidence issues is just, wow, look what you did. Like showing them that they did something. And I don't even have to say what it is that they did, because in fact, if I don't, it helps them attribute, wow, look what I did, and make them sort of like think it back, like replay the situation and realize, like, wow, I was just able to write this letter, or I was just able to, you know, solve this problem, or ease the tensions between my siblings, or whatever it was. If you just stop for a second and admire it, sort of acknowledge it, I think, and invite them to do the same thing, it helps. I've got a cute story about my daughter. My oldest is my son, and he is a daredevil. Like he will do anything. He was riding a bike with two wheels at 3 years old, from probably 3 o'clock too. But to my dismay, like I couldn't handle it because I thought he was going to crash into a car or something, but he was just off and running. My daughter learning to ride a bike, she was 7. She was very cautious. She did not have the confidence. And I just took her and I was like, today we're doing it. It was on her birthday when she was turning 7. Because I knew she had it in her physically. It was just a confidence issue. It was just a mental issue. And I have a video of this and I love it, where she was just about to go and she threw a fit and she said, "Oh, Dad, it's impossible. I'm never going to do this. I just can't do it." And all I said to her is, "Harper, it's possible." And then she tried again and she did it. And you should have seen her face. Like it was nothing, like I did nothing else except remind her that, no, this is not impossible. And that gave her even a scotch of confidence. And then doing it obviously is when like all that confidence poured in. So I could have said like, no, push your foot down a little more, or hold tighter. I could have gotten technical, and I think that would have ruined the moment. And really it's just like that tiniest bit of nudge that they need can really be that catalyst. So I think finding those opportunities to remind them that they're capable and that they're contributing to something, whether it's themselves or the house, like those two things I think are quite important in building that confidence.
Yeah. I love that.
One last question, if we have a minute, which is, I think, on behalf of lots of parents right now who are at home with their kids and who may not have materials that they think are, ready and appropriate for this. Are there some sort of like, let's say I'm ready to get started today. And I observe and I see, James is preferring certain types of activities. What are some sort of like household items or things I might have that I could right away sort of use to get started?
Yeah, and this is kind of where I say that I hope it inspires you to like become a student again in a way that you could get really into it. And I can give an example, that maybe your child is really into cars and you're like, what can I do in my house that, invokes that? And so then you can find things in your home that roll and you can make a ramp. I'm giving examples because I think I don't want to tell you like a laundry list of things, but what can roll? I mean, a rolling pin can roll, a cylinder that I had in one of the pictures, balls, there's so many things. And then if you realize your child's really into making noise, you can take out metal items. It's hard to give you like a specific list, but like, I love what you said. If I observed and did that can help you start. But I can say that a great place to start is the kitchen.
I've noticed that too. We'll put a bucket of water and like a measuring cup and he just like has
Right.
the best time. I saw like a salad spinner in one of your photos.
Yes.
It's just, and you are in awe of the things that your children, are so engaged in. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
I've always thought that children, since they don't have a conception of what play is and what work is, I've always just been under the premise that they just think we're playing all the time.
Yeah.
And so they like want to do whatever we're doing. So I've found a lot. I also think the kitchen is the best room in the house for children.
It's so
Jennie,
true.
thanks so much. This was such an interesting conversation, and I think it's important to always go back and be intentional about how you're setting up circumstances for your children. And so you've given us lots of tools to do that. Thank you.
Thank you for including me. I loved doing this, so thank you.
Absolutely. I hope all of your conversations with your in-laws and your parents go well after this.
I'll just say that if you want, you can show them on my page at Mo Mommies or at Union Square Play. You could be like, look what I learned here. Not for a self-promoting thing, but really they might not want to watch a whole YouTube, although I recommend this, but yeah.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that. And we do, yeah, Kayla just put in the chat, get it quickly before we jump off. If you can click through to some of those links, you'll get some information to find Jennie more. Write down her name, you can Google her and you'll find all of her things really easily too.
Thank you.
It's been wonderful. I appreciate you taking the time and helping support us all.
Great to chat. Thanks, Jennie.
Bye, guys.
Bye.